Well, hello, Manchester Hooks at Auburn. It's Wednesday, so that means, of course, being 7 o'clock, it's time for another edition of the Progress Report. And I'm very happy to say I have back my good friend and co-host, Mike Farley.
I don't know what you're happy about, but here I am. It's good to be back.
He's just been on a wonderful, apparently, trip out to San Francisco and Sacramento, which sounds like it was a wonderful thing, and I certainly hope it was.
It sure was, no doubt about that.
Really great. We are expecting Senator Lou D'Alessandro, who graces us with his presence.
Speak of the devil.
And here's the devil right now.
From stage left, here comes the senator.
Lou D'Alessandro is nothing if not a good part of the Progress Report because he's with us the first Wednesday of every month. And we are pleased to have him back with us tonight because this distinguished senator, the Dean of the Senate. Oh, I thought you were going to have the book with you, Lou.
I would have had it, but...
Sold out?
Sold
Sold all.
But we are having Lou with us tonight for one particular reason. He has been honored, I would say, by having a biography of him that has just been published. The author is Mark Bodanza. Not Lou D'Alessandro, but the book is all about Lou D'Alessandro. I love the title. It's Lou D'Alessandro, Lion of the Senate, Parens, New Hampshire, close parens, thought for presidential hopefuls. And I've had the great privilege of being at one of, I guess maybe the first book signing?
First book signing, yes.
Which was up in Concord, and I have a nice signed copy. I've already lent it to somebody who's enjoyed it and posted about it on Facebook. Did you know
Great.
Retta had posted about it on Facebook?
I didn't know that, but I'm happy
And
to
so
hear
she's
that.
read it, so this book is, doing what books should do, going viral.
Well, thank you. Actually, Mark and I have spent the last 2 years building this book, along with my wife, Pat. I got to give her credit, too. And we would have conversations, and Mark would then transcribe those conversations and build the book. So 2 years in the making, first published a week ago Wednesday. We had our first book signing at the Common Man Restaurant in Concord. Alex Ray, a former student of mine, is the owner of the Common Man Restaurants.
Who isn't a former student
Right.
of yours? If they're
So
the right
Alex,
age.
Alex was very gracious in allowing us to use his place. And oh gosh, we had a lot of people show up. I was very pleased, obviously,
Yeah.
thankful, because you always worry if anybody's going to show up for something like this. But we had a great group show up, and very happy. And we have another one coming up in Manchester on the 31st of this month at the Manchester Public Library. And
What time would that be?
It'll be at 7 p.m.
Oh, 7 p.m. I think I posted on Facebook 10 a.m., so I apologize. Don't pay attention to that, 7 p.m.
7 p.m. And we're just very fortunate that C-SPAN is going to cover it.
How about that?
Yeah, so we're really lucky in that context. So it's been good. We self-published this book, so obviously the money has been fronted by myself and Mark Bodanza, and it really was we didn't you don't expect to do something financially. It's a work of love, a labor of love, and something I've been thinking about for a long period of time. I've been in and out of the State House for the last 40 plus years, and I thought it was about time to just put something down about my life and about my work in the State House, particularly with presidential candidates. So really that's what the book is all about.
Well, it's about a lot more than that. It's a fascinating look at your growing up, your distinguished career in athletics. I didn't know you played that much football in various venues and schools, and I know you have a distinguished career as a teacher and a coach.
Yeah.
But I certainly learned a lot about your family background.
Well, thank you.
And it was you get in this book, it doesn't take you long to finish it because it's an interesting read. I think Mark Bodanza deserves a lot of credit for putting this together.
I thought he did
in a terrific way.
Yeah, terrific job. Mark has written about 7 books, but he's dealt with JoJo White when he was with the Celtics, and JoJo has passed away, and he dealt with Sam Jones. He did books on both of those guys, and here's a unique, kind of a unique situation. This is how this all got started. A few years ago, I get a call from Sam Jones. Sam has been a friend of mine for a long period of time. When I was a coach, Sam and I went to Brazil representing the United States, part of the Alliance for Progress. So he was finishing up with the Celts, and I was coaching at New Hampshire College, which is now Southern New Hampshire University, and I was asked to go to Brazil and to recruit some coaches. So I recruited Sam. So we became friends, and Sam calls every once in a while, calls the office. So Sonia happened to take a message one day, and she said to me, Sam Jones called. She didn't know who Sam Jones was. Who the heck is Sam Jones? And I said, well, he played for the Celtics. He's got his retired number. He's a Hall of Famer. He was a great player, and so forth and so on. So I call Sam back, and I say, Sam, what's going on? And Sam says, well, I'm coming to Boston, and we're going to have a book signing at the Boston Garden, and you ought to come. So I called Tom Sanders, who's another friend of mine who played with Sam for the Celtics, and I said to Satch, Sam's coming up, and we ought to go see him at the Garden. So we get tickets, and we go to the game. At the book signing, I meet Mark Bedanza, and I say, geez, I've been thinking about writing a book, and would you have any interest in working with me? And he said, oh, let me think about it. And then I called a friend of mine from Leominster, because Mark Bedanza is from Leominster, a guy named Frank Novak. And Frank was a coach in the NFL, a good friend of mine. And when I was coaching, he set up some games in the Midwest for me, northern Michigan and eastern Michigan. So I said to Frank, well, what about Mark Bedanza? Oh, he's a really nice guy, and he really gets into these things. So Mark and I got together, and as I said, for 2 years we've been working on this, and the first couple of meetings were at my house. Then we decided to meet halfway. So we met at a Dunkin' Donuts in Hollis, and we're going to have a book signing at that Dunkin' Donuts. And every Saturday morning for the last 2 years, we would meet and talk about this book and what we were going to do and how we were going to do it, and so forth and so on. So we would go to the Dunkin' Donuts and reserve the table, and the three of us, Pat, myself, and Mark, would sit at the table and would talk about the book and talk about what we were going to do. And then he would write a chapter, send it to us. We would go through it and write it back, make any corrections, and so forth. And that kind of was the birth of the book. And, when you start to do something like this, you think back, and there are so many things that you recall that, have gotten away with it. For example, Bob, you pointed it out, how many people remember me as a football player? In my high school days, my college days at the university, my professional career with teams in the Atlantic Coast League, with the Lowell Giants, with the Providence Steamroller, and really spent my formative years, very, very much involved in athletics. I come to Manchester, I become the football and baseball coach at Bishop Bradley High School and the assistant basketball coach. So I had a career of athletics. Here we are 50 years later. Who remembers me as an athlete? No, you were involved in education, because I went from Bishop Bradley to New Hampshire College. I went from New Hampshire College. I became president of Daniel Webster College. I left Daniel Webster College to run for governor. I lost in the gubernatorial race, and then I became president of Nassau College, and then came back to New Hampshire as vice president of Franklin Pierce University. So how many people really remember? The memories are pretty short. And so I'm reliving my life, and I tell the story of when I'm being recruited as a fairly decent high school football player. I'm being recruited to go to the University of Colorado. So Mr. John Delasolo, who was a line coach for the New York Football Giants and a former coach up at Dartmouth College, had recommended me. So they fly me out to visit the school. And I'm treated just magnificently, and visit the school, and I make a commitment. I say, I'm going to the University of Colorado. And in those days, I got a full athletic scholarship. I had room, board, tuition, books, and fees, and plane trips back and forth, one plane trip a year. So I started at the University of Colorado. And again, nobody remembers that because nobody knew about it.
Right.
And here, the University of New Hampshire, the second game of their upcoming season will be in Boulder, Colorado, and will be against the University of Colorado.
Really?
So I call the governor of Colorado, who's a friend of mine, and I say, I think I'm going to come out, maybe bring my wife and my grandson, because I want to see the stadium where I played many, many years ago. And again, I don't want to go on and on, but there's a whole part of my life that went under the rug. I was a fairly decent athlete in high school. I was all New England when I was a senior, and
What position did you play?
I was an end and a linebacker, and
You went both ways.
we had to go both ways
In those days, yeah.
I had to go both ways. So, anyway, I had a good career and very fortunate, because my academics weren't the strongest, Bob. I want to make that perfectly clear, but I've improved, I think. But, and I tell some stories about that. And well, you've read the book, so you know.
Yeah, I have read the book, and I
but-
certainly got a lot of insights.
Right. So life changes, and I transferred to the University of New Hampshire, and my freshman year at the University of New Hampshire, I meet Pat Morgenstern from Manchester, New Hampshire, and we
Were
start.
we lucky
coming
that
out.
she was
Yeah.
from Manchester?
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise,
Oh,
you
boy.
might not even be part of
Right,
Manchester
right.
yourself.
Yeah, I was so fortunate, really.
Yeah.
And come Saturday will be our 57th wedding anniversary.
How about that?
Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Congratulations. And you have a grandson that just graduated from college.
Yeah, grandson that just graduated from UNH last Saturday, and been very, very lucky. So that's how it all started. And once you get into this, and you retrospectively, you think about, gee, where's the time gone? Where's my life gone? And yet it seems like yesterday.
Yeah.
When you look
Especially
back.
when you go back and
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
when you
Recreate it
start
with a
thinking
skilled
about
author.
it,
Right.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the mechanics of,
Sure.
of putting together a book
Right.
like this. Briefly,
Oh, sure.
you've touched on it a little bit. The meetings at the Dunkin' Donuts,
Right.
and what I was curious about was did your author go off and produce the book and then come back with a finished product? But apparently you saw it in stages,
Right.
and you were able to have your input on it. So
Right.
my big question was, are you satisfied with the product that came out?
Oh,
And
oh,
apparently you would be because you were
Sure.
part of the
Well,
process
thanks.
of putting
Sure,
it
thanks
out.
for the question. Yes, we would write it one chapter at a time, and he would. We had clippings that from the old. We had scrapbooks that we would look into, and then we would do research on the web, and we paid a lot of attention to articles that appeared in the Manchester Union Leader, because I was the topic of conversation for Jim Finnegan, God rest his soul, Bill Loeb, and
yeah.
I remember
So-
an alliterative nickname they gave to
right,
you.
right, yeah, yeah, yeah,
I've got something I'd like you to tell about that I just thought was wonderful in the book.
sure,
A lot of people may remember, a lot of people may not, that you started your political career as a member of the Republican Party.
yes, I did,
You
right,
served as an executive counselor,
right,
member of the House,
Yep.
and you ran for governor,
yes, I did,
all as a Republican.
yes,
And at a certain point, you decided that wasn't a good fit.
right,
And the book describes you and your lovely wife, Pat, going down to City Hall
right,
and registering as Democrats. And you had made a very close friendship with Governor Walter Peterson.
yes, yes.
And you said to myself, I wonder how Walter is going to react to this. And would you tell us about that? Because I thought that was just charming. In these days of bipartisan
Oh, yeah.
warfare, I mean, partisan warfare.
Right, sure. Well, I first made an association with Walter Peterson when he was governor, and that was like in 68, 69, and he appointed me to the athletic commission. And he loved basketball, and he knew I was a basketball coach, and I believe he came to see some of our games. In those days, we were playing at Bishop Bradley High School because we had no gym, we had no campus in those days. So I became very friendly with Walter. I loved him. He was just a wonderful, wonderful guy. Hey, they don't make him like Walter anymore, I'll tell you that. State lost a magnificent statesman when he passed away. So I meet with Walter. I go to Peterborough and I meet with him and I say, Walter, I'm going to change parties. What do you think? And he was very gracious, very gracious as Walter always was. And he said, well, it doesn't doesn't mean anything to him. I am what I am, and he would still help me regardless of what I did.
And he did.
Yes, he did. Listen, Walter, by giving me the job at Franklin Pierce University when he made me vice president for continuing education, boy, he made a remarkable plus for me in my life. My 10 years with Walter were among the best I ever spent. And when I was president of Dana Webster, we would get together a lot because we were part of the college consortium, and he played a big role in my life. I mean, many key decisions that I've made in my life.
Well, he played a big role in the life of New Hampshire.
Yes.
People may not remember this because it's quite a while ago now, but Walter Peterson oversaw the last major reform of our tax structure we've had in this state.
Yep.
When he did away with what was called the old stock and trade tax, which was a crazy thing.
It was awful.
And we got our more modern, maybe not entirely for everybody sufficient, but modern major contribute to our revenues, the business profits and the business enterprise taxes to replace the stock and trade tax. That was under the Peterson administration.
Yeah, Peterson gave us the business profits tax. Merrill gave us the business enterprise tax.
Okay.
Which was to get around the salary
well,
loophole,
sure,
the dividend loophole.
because Cabletron threatened to sue.
Yeah.
Benson was going to sue, and they needed a way to capture, that revenue. But Walter, Walter represented everything that was good about New Hampshire and everything that was good about politics. And when you sat down with Walter, you listened, you paid attention to what he had to say. As Ernie Loomis said, Walter Peterson could tell you to go to hell and you'd enjoy the trip.
That's great.
Now that's true diplomacy, right?
Yeah, that is just a wonderful man. And Dorothy Peterson, remarkable woman. Walter had about 100 different diets, and Dorothy would adjust her cooking to the diets, and we would eat over their house a lot. But there's a wonderful woman who's in her 90s now, and we still see her occasionally. But what a magnificent couple! The first man of New Hampshire, the governor of New Hampshire, and the first lady, just remarkable.
And a person
people.
who was a stalwart friend of yours, regardless of which party you were familiar with.
He was
a supporter.
Right.
That's something so rare.
Yeah.
I just wanted to emphasize what a wonderful thing that was.
Appreciate that very much.
Could you take a minute to talk for those who aren't as familiar, myself included? What was the thought process? What prompted you to make that kind of change? Because there's a lot going on in the Republican Party, a lot going on in the Democratic Party now, where people are kind of making decisions very similar to that.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see what your circumstances and motivation were.
Oh, well, sure, happy to. I ran through a very difficult primary, Republican primary, lost the primary by a couple of thousand votes. It was a very, very close race.
Is this a
John Sununu, Bob Monier,
gubernatorial
primary? And in reality, I felt a little ostracized after I lost the primary because Mel Thompson said prior that if I won the primary, he would run as an independent because he didn't want to see me be the governor. And as a result of that, it was never very warm and fuzzy there because I think I was very moderate where the party was very conservative, but the decision was made really based on the fact that they ran away from me, and I really needed a place to go, and as I said, talked to Walter about it, but decided to become a Democrat. And my wife had been a Democrat; she had become a Republican because I was a Republican and seeking public office, but it was very difficult to do. Because I was invested in people like Kim Anzakis, who was just a magnificent guy, Dave Nixon, who became a very, very close friend of mine.
Two of my fellow Wesleyan guys.
Sure, and of course Walter. So I had an affinity with moderate Republicans. But at that point in time, there was no moderate Republican Party anymore. Really, there wasn't. And as a result, make the decision to leave the party. But in reality, the party left me. And Dave Nyan God rest his soul, was a good buddy of mine. Dave and I worked.
Long-time Boston Globe
Long-time
columnist.
Boston Globe columnist, Harvard graduate. Dave wrote an article about me, Focus in the Boston Globe, and wrote about the change from the one party to the other. It kind of went into depth about it. It was a great article. He was a terrific writer, But it was a tough decision because there were those who said that I would just fade away. Neither party really wanted me that bad.
Yeah.
So I was
those folks certainly, would have to eat their words given the history of the thing. But
right. Well, I was, and I think there's a little excerpt in the book about this. I don't want to give away too much because I want people to buy it. But there were people in the Democratic Party who said that they didn't think I should run for public office because the public didn't like me.
Yeah.
I mean, that was pretty difficult to absorb. I mean, we all have egos, but
it's
politics ain't beanbag, right?
No, politics ain't for sissies.
I just think your success with the electorate here over many years is really astounding because back in the day the union leader had a lot more oomph than it does now.
Yes.
And they never supported you. I mean,
Never.
you got hit one day by Bill Loeb and the next day by Jim Finnegan, and you were Liberal Lou.
Right.
And to be able to survive in that environment in this town, which is a one newspaper town after all, and in those days the newspaper was really much more of a monopoly than it is now with all the other media choices we got.
Yeah.
That's a remarkable achievement. I think you have every right to be proud of.
Thank you. It was obviously it was difficult, and you just work hard. And I think the fact that I was a teacher, and the fact that people knew me, and I think they knew that I wasn't as bad as those articles pointed out. And I think it's all about people and getting to know people and helping people and being there when people need you, and people respond in a positive way, and I think that's what kept me alive.
Yeah.
Because they could have destroyed me.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question about that.
So you got the book signing coming up at the library
Yep.
on the 31st at
The
7 p.m.
7 p.m. and thrilled
Isn't
to
that
do
a
it.
holiday
It's Well, the holiday is the Monday because of the weekend situation, but it's a Thursday night.
Thursday night,
Yeah.
yeah.
And remember the old days, Thursday night downtown
that was the
used
night
to be
to be
great.
out, right?
That was everybody was out.
Everybody was out in the old days. So that's when we'll do it. We hope we can build a crowd to come and see, and we'll give a little story about the book and what went into it and what we hope comes as a result of it.
Yeah. Here it is, folks. Lou, I can't believe he didn't bring an actual copy of the book,
should have, I'm sorry.
He has these flyers here.
Right.
We can get it on. He's got a number of nice testimonials promoting, saying the book is definitely worth time. I'll just read one. Lou D'Alessandro, Line of the New Hampshire Senate and Thoughts for Presidential Hopefuls is interesting, educational, and important read. It certainly puts, quote, a lot of meat on the D'Alessandro bones. Thomas Satch Sanders, former Boston Celtic and NBA Hall of Famer. That's a pretty nice testimonial.
Yeah, Satch is a good friend and again a terrific guy. And Satch and I have been friends for almost the last 50 years, and we speak every Sunday night, and we've done that for years and years and years. We put a business together. Don Nelson, Tom Sanders, and myself. We had our basketball camp at Camp Litchhaven, and then we moved it to New Hampshire College, and then it went out to New England College. So we've been business associates and friends for a long period of time, and he's a terrific guy who can tell you a lot about what professional basketball was like in the 60s and how it's changed to the present day, and not just salaries, but in the way players are treated. And he's an amazing man.
Yeah. Well, very good. I think we're about ready for our first break. Folks, I failed to remind everybody that we do take calls on this show.
Good chance to call in.
640-3091 if you want to participate and talk with Lou about this singular achievement of having his biography written by a very skilled writer. and what's going to happen next. We may come back and talk a little bit, because we're just wrapping up. Did you close out the session
yeah, we
today?
did. We closed
As
it
the
out
House
today.
did.
Yep.
We can talk a little bit about that when we come back,
Sure.
because, it's kind of a good time to look back and see what the great and general court did for you, or maybe not in your interest, depending how you feel. When we come back, we can talk a little bit about that with Lou, and I dare say we probably can predict you're going to run for election again.
I'm running for election again. Absolutely.
Well, we're making news. We're making
making
news
news.
on the progress report.
So we'll be right back with more with Lou D'Alessandro and broaden out our topics. And please join us if you wish. 640-3091. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. This will be our final segment on the progress report. We're a little different format today. We're having two 30-minute segments instead of three 20-minute segments, but who cares about that? We are very pleased to have with us the Dean of the Senate. If you don't believe it, it says it right in his license plate. Being the longest-serving member of the New Hampshire Senate, Lou D'Alessandro, who has just been honored, I think, by having a skilled writer, Mark Bodanza, write a biography for him, and he's going to make this is the book here. This is the cover picture. I don't know if you can see it, but
It's
that's
got a
Lou.
picture of Lou on it.
What a
Imagine
shock!
that.
What a shock, huh? And the title, I think, is quite charming. Lou D'Alessandro, Lion of the Senate, New Hampshire, because the Lion of the Senate in the U.S. Senate was
Ted Kennedy.
Ted Kennedy.
Yeah, Ted Kennedy.
I
And
wanted to
you,
talk about that. That's
Yeah.
that's a lofty title.
Well, you know, we played around with the title, and finally, it just struck a responsive chord, and you know, we thought about the Kennedy situation. That's why we put New Hampshire in it. You know, Lion of the Senate, New Hampshire. Didn't want to take anything away from former Senator Kennedy, who was a wonderful public servant, but it just seemed appropriate, you know, at the time, because
well, you've certainly prowled the Senate like a lion for many, many years.
well,
and
there were
had some impact.
and a lot of battles in the Senate.
Yeah.
You know, a lot
Yeah.
of battles in the Senate, and
Some
you
won,
know,
some lost.
Oh yeah, some won, some lost.
You're scarred up too.
Oh, really scarred up, and notwithstanding my work with expanded gaming, 20 years. Talk about scars. I feel like I have broken legs, broken arms, and the whole thing. And heck, I said on the floor of the Senate, I said, you know, Senator French is here one term, and he gets his horse racing bill, the antique horse racing bill. I'm here 20 years, and I can't get I can't get the casino bill passed. Lose it by one vote. One vote, and for the rest of my life, I'll remember Representative Kane.
Sometimes the lion doesn't get his quarry.
Oh, absolutely,
Sometimes the quarry
absolutely.
gets away, and
Right.
that's certainly
Well,
been happened to you with a casino bill.
Yep, sure. So you're humbled after that, but you got to keep going. So anyway, that was the genesis of the title, and then thoughts for presidential hopefuls. Actually, there were a couple of national people who encouraged me to do this. And kept thinking about it, and that's how all of this fit. It all fit together. It all fit together, and that's how the title was born. And we had a wonderful woman from Exeter who actually was our editor, and she had a great deal to do with developing the theme and developing the title, and certainly the cover of the book. That was her making. We sent her some pictures, and she chose this one. And
It's a very excellent picture.
yeah, and we went with it. So
Yeah.
again, quite lucky in that respect. But
So I thought, Lou, that maybe we could now switch over.
Sure.
If somebody wants to call and talk about the book, we're happy to do that. But if that doesn't happen, I thought we might talk about the fact that both the Senate and the House, where I was today, obviously, we finished our work
Right.
for the session, except for coming back to deal with
vetoes.
gubernatorial vetoes, of which I guess at this point there's only one. Is that right?
That's what I heard. I heard that he vetoed one bill.
Yeah. Well, there's been one veto mentioned, but there's lots more bills that are awaiting his action, so there may be more.
Yes,
Other
could
than
be.
coming back from that, we've wrapped up this term and this session.
Yep.
Citizenry is safe again.
Citizenry is safe again.
One of my favorite quotes.
Right,
Neither
right,
life,
right.
liberty, nor property are safe.
And
when the
I would just
legislature's
kind of
in
like to
session.
get your assessment of what you figure were the biggest accomplishments and the biggest failures from your point of view as the Dean of the Senate.
Well, I think the biggest accomplishments made by both houses, the reauthorization of Medicaid expansion.
Yes.
And that was not a cakewalk.
It was
that
not a
up in the air.
cakewalk. I know Senator Bradley worked very hard, Senator Morse hard, Senator Feltus. I know I participated in that discussion and worked with the hospitals and worked with my membership, worked with the Democrats. But 52,000 lives were at stake. A tremendous amount of economic recovery for the medical profession in New Hampshire. We took down from the Affordable Care Act about $1.4 billion. Now, that money was disseminated to the hospitals, to the insurance companies, et cetera. $1.4 billion. That's when it was 100% federal money. Now it's 96%. Our contribution is about $19 million, and as we move forward, our contribution will become greater because of the fact that it goes down to a 90-10 split, and that's where it ends. But kudos to the hospitals. You had to get all the hospitals rounded up and get them working, and you had to find a way to fund this without any general fund money, because the law that was written when we initially passed Medicaid expansion said no general fund money will be spent, and if any general fund money is asked for, the bill will disintegrate. That's pretty tough stuff.
Very tough.
Very tough stuff.
That's not a sunset. That's
Yeah,
the
that's
end of
it.
the world.
That's the end of the world. So the hospitals participated. The state used the alcohol fund for about $11 million, and then there's the extra money from the insurance tax fell in there, and then the hospitals backfilled
The rainy day
the
fund.
rainy day fund. So
Yeah.
so we did it, and it was a great cooperative effort. So that was, I think, the major accomplishment. The second was the MET. That's the Met tax, and solving that problem, because that dealt with uncompensated care. That was a big one, and all the hospitals had to agree with that. And we struck, because of the good work of the senators in the House, we struck a 7-year deal, and we've got to pay them. You know, we have to pay them back. And again, in terms of the technical language, it's uncompensated care, but they get $200+ million, each year. Now that's a 50-50 split between the feds and us. But that's done, and that was very, very important. Those two bills I think, stand right at the top of the list. But the third one,
I want to say
ahead,
something
sure.
about that, Lou. All session long, we've been hearing that this was the biggest thing that we were going to deal with. And when we got to the caucus, our caucus, when this was coming to a vote for the last time, our leader, Steve Shurtleff, who does a magnificent job, said, we're going to have divisions here. I just want everybody to remember at the end of it, we're all going to be together.
Right.
And it went down on a voice vote.
Yes, it
A
did.
voice vote. That's a stunning accomplishment for something that was supposed to be perhaps the most controversial piece of legislation in the whole damn session.
Bob, remind folks who might not have sat in the House, what's the difference? Why is that stunning that it was a voice vote, not a division or a roll call?
Usually anything that's hotly contested, you get sometimes a division vote, which just means everybody votes without their names being recorded anonymously. But more often than not, you get a roll call vote, and anybody can call for roll call. If 10 people stand up, it's considered to be sufficiently seconded, and then everybody votes on it, gets recorded. With a major piece of legislation like that, everybody assumed it would be a roll call vote. So those that were ideologically opposed to this would be recorded.
Right.
And that would be, the free staters and the extreme libertarians that we have.
Right.
And
To be used as a campaign club or shield somewhere down the line.
Yeah. And so for this to go down and a voice vote was a stunning accomplishment. And I think the people in the Senate and the people in the House on both sides deserve a lot of credit for having this come to be a blowout. It was really a blowout. That with the good work that was done to make this work without having to hit up the general fund,
No question.
that was the key to the thing. And,
Sure. And the fact that in the Senate, 7 Republicans voted against it.
Yeah.
So it took the Democrats to make it happen,
Yep.
along with the group of moderate Republicans. So talk about cooperation at its highest level, getting this passed, because of how important it was to everybody's constituents and how significant it was for the hospitals. And your medical care and your medical well-being were at stake at this piece of legislation. So that gets done. And remember, when it was first authorized, the Speaker had to cast the deciding vote. By one vote, it won, and credit Sean Jasper. He cast.
Yes, he gave us his word, and he kept his word. He
cast-
broke the tie.
He did. He cast the key vote. So you're right. Miracles do happen, and as a result, Medicaid expansion was renewed.
Well, a lot of hard work behind that miracle.
A lot of hard work, and think of some of the little things that are in there that had to be compromised. The age from 13 to 6, the work requirement, which is now part and parcel of it. But there are a number of ways to address the work requirement.
And
These
this time it's authorized for 5 years.
Yes, and
we
it's
won't have to
authorized
come
for
back
5
and
years.
do this over again in the next
Right.
term.
That was very important, getting it done for 5 years.
Yeah.
So you have that. The MET's taken care of, and that's taken care of for 7 years, which is even more important because that produces lawsuits all the time. And then we have the Army bill, which is the Dean Kamen bill.
Yeah, which we
The
talked
re-
about on the show a couple weeks ago.
regenerative,
but that promotes bringing in new people who,
Oh, yeah.
who can come and work on that project.
And it creates Manchester as a real center for R&D, a research and development, which, Manchester is the only city of 125, 130,000 in the whole country that doesn't have a major research university in the confines of the city. We're about the same size as Ann Arbor, Michigan. They have the University of Michigan there. So we did it with UNH Manchester as a player, and they're going to be a player. And Dean Kamen and DECA, his organization, which is another player, and this new entity, a new 501c6, by the way, has been created, and that's Army. And they're going to bring in people, they're going to bring in businesses, and already 2 new businesses have relocated
Right.
here in New Hampshire.
How
So-
exciting is that?
And there will be more startups who, satellites
absolutely.
that are going to be able to provide, parts and components to what's going on.
Sure.
And I think we owe we have to give a lot of credit, not just to Dean Kamen, but to Mike DeSalle, the dean of
Oh, yeah, sure.
UNH Manchester. He told me Monday at the event we were at, Lou, that this year they had a graduating class of 275, And that's the largest graduate. And this campus is focused on biotechnology.
Yep.
That's their major emphasis. They teach a lot of other things, but that's their major emphasis.
Sure.
And most of those folks are planning to stay here.
Well, and that's what we need. We need our young people to stay. First of all, we need our young people to choose New Hampshire institutions for post-secondary education. We have a very low matriculation rate, and we got to get
it's
kids to graduate. Well, it is expensive, but it's a worthwhile expense. Believe me.
Understood. College is a worthwhile expense, but in New Hampshire,
That's
if
expensive.
you're a New Hampshire native, you pay
Right,
more than anywhere
right.
else almost.
Well, for
I think
sure.
anywhere else at all.
Well, we're Vermont. You pay more, to be honest. But
Well,
yeah, we
fair
pay.
enough.
We
Okay,
pay.
we
We
beat
pay.
one state.
We pay a lot. But my two of my three children went to the university system. One to UNH and one to Plymouth State. I have a grandson who just graduated from UNH, from the Paul School of Business. So it's a wonderful system, and we don't give it enough credit. And really,
We don't give it enough money either.
we don't give it enough money either, and that's got to improve. But the fact of the matter is, with UNH Manchester committed to the Army project, the fact that they are going to go sled length in support of the project, I think that's a wonderful thing, because too many people have considered the university, it's that place in Durham. Well, it isn't that place in Durham. It's your university, and it's everywhere. And it's in Manchester, the Queen City, and the commitment by the university system is vital to the economic well-being of this city.
Well, they're developing research labs, I guess, in,
Oh,
in
yeah.
their new facility, the old Pandora.
Oh,
building.
yeah, they're
they-
multi-million
they're
dollar
really
project on the top
investing.
floor of the old
Right.
Pandora
And,
building.
and that's, I always say, it's nice to talk about things you want to do, but when you put your money where your mouth
Right.
is, that's when you know things are going to
Oh,
happen.
a significant investment, both in time and money. But it's going to do something. Think of what it's going to do for humanity. If you can
For
produce
wounded soldiers.
wounded. So that's what I said on the floor of the Senate. Look at people who would have died years ago because the field hospitals were not up to par, live now and come back with these injuries. And these injuries are really severe. Arms, legs, damage to the organs of the body. This regenerative process, if indeed it succeeds, and we hope it does, will be able to recreate from your DNA a product that can be inserted into your body, which will give you a new organ, a new kidney, a new pancreas. It's amazing.
This
It's
could put us
amazing.
on the leading of a major technology
Oh,
in all
absolutely.
the world.
Absolutely. What a difference.
Hey,
We have a
Eddie.
call. We got Eddie on the line.
Hi, Eddie. Welcome back. Eddie?
Go ahead, Eddie. You're live on the Progress Report. Good to hear back from you.
Hey, good to have my call get accepted. I don't know. Sometimes Bob doesn't take my calls, but
Oh, come on.
You don't hang on long enough for me to get to you.
Have
Eddie.
some patience.
Have a little patience.
I'm
I'm not blocking you,
Hey,
Eddie.
Mike, did you say earlier that we don't give UNH enough money?
I think the tuition at New Hampshire, at UNH is higher than everywhere but we hear Vermont. And I think that the state ought to make a bigger commitment to higher education. Yes, I do.
All right, I think everybody would agree that the tuition to UNH is sky high, right? Right?
I don't think you're
Well,
hearing me
well,
argue
yeah.
with you.
And your follow-on is what?
Well, if we gave them more money, would the tuition go down? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I do think that that is one way
help.
that the money could be used.
Yeah, it could
But
help.
that depends upon the regents and trustees, I guess, as to how the money's spent.
Yeah. But if,
Well, Mike,
Go ahead.
the money's being spent. They give the professors a raise. They give the deans a raise. They hire a diversity coordinator. They acquire more land. They put up more buildings.
Well, I'm going
I
to
mean,
default to
it's-
I am not an educator, and I have to trust that the experts that are being hired know what they're doing. So I don't second guess experts where I don't know what I'm talking about.
well, let's talk about the positive things that have taken place at the university.
Go ahead, Sam.
This Granite Scholar Program, where if you are a Pell recipient and you're academically qualified and you're a New Hampshire student, you can get free tuition for 4 years
I heard
at
that.
the university.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great thing because
Yep.
I saw that, and when
Yeah,
I
it's
saw
terrific.
it, I said to myself, if you qualify for the Pell Grant,
Right? Yes.
they're going to waive tuition.
Yes.
But what about the guy that just misses the Pell Grant.
Okay.
He's screwed now.
Well, he's not.
Right?
Yeah, he's really not screwed, because Dana Hamill has given the university $14 million for scholarships, and he's created Hamill Scholars. Those youngsters, if they're academically qualified, they get substantial dollars to offset their tuition costs.
Good thing Dana Hamill's around.
Oh, he's a great guy.
But
Well,
let's
sure.
make a whole different subject. So
Yes.
you like the idea of saying if you get the Pell Grant, we'll waive tuition. You're in favor of something like that?
Well, I think it's a way to ascertain need. So if you get the Pell Grant, obviously you're needy and academically qualified, then why shouldn't you get help?
Well, there's probably a lot. What would be better to serve more people is to lower the price across the board instead of picking winners
Sure.
and losers like that.
Sure.
See, that's how you arrive to where we are today, where, like we said, we all agree about the astronomical, sky-high tuition. And it would be better to just lower the cost across the board.
Yep.
Instead of coming up with these ideas, well, if you get the Pell Grant, you waive tuition. The guy who misses the Pell Grant, maybe he misses it by $1,000 a year. Maybe his father's
Yeah.
a carpenter.
Right.
He misses it by $1,000. He's getting doubly slammed.
Yeah. Well, I
No,
think.
I think we get your point, Eddie, and I'm kind of in agreement with you on that. To me, this is kind of like the pharmaceuticals charging them, outlandish money for the medication, and then saying, "But just give us a call and we'll help you out with it if you need it." It would be better if it was just lower all across the board. I think we get the point, Eddie. We'll discuss.
Now, and, it's good to know you're still taking my calls.
We love you. We love you, Eddie.
I know that Mike's on tonight, so maybe I'd have a better chance, but sometimes when it's just Bob,
Just
he
don't-
doesn't want to take my call. for
Oh,
some
come
reason,
on.
but-
Just don't be
All
so
right.
impatient. I have to wait till I think it's an appropriate time. I'm not cutting you off.
Thanks for calling, Eddie.
Take care. Bye.
No, I don't think he's making a bad point. I'm in agreement with it,
Right.
and that was kind of the point I was trying to make, Senator. And this isn't a personal attack on you. It's not meant to be. It's just we've got a situation in New Hampshire where our local folks are paying more than I think they should. And there's a lot of reasons for it. And as I said, I'm not an educator. I'm not an administrator at a college. So I trust that they're doing the right thing. But
Well, I mean, first of all, you want to make sure they're doing the right thing, and you have oversight. And the legislature has chosen to put the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House as members of the University System Board of Trustees, and right now they're voting members. I think that's a real positive situation. Better rapport between the legislature and the university system is another thing that should happen, and that has to happen, because the university system, those are all public dollars. When you build those buildings, they're all owned by all of us. And I think as we become more engaged, we'll have a better idea of how to deal with them. And remember, we reduced the commitment to the university a number of times.
Yes, I do remember that. That's kind of why I'm talking.
Well, and
when
when O'Brien was speaker, we reduced the aid to the university. And where does the university get the bulk of its money? It gets it from tuition. So you increase the tuition. But I agree. You can manage it better. You can handle it better. There are ways to do this. But remember, in today's world, you need sophisticated equipment. If you're an engineer and taking engineering at the university, we need to provide you.
My dad's
with
slide
more.
rule is not enough anymore.
No, it isn't enough anymore. So you've got
My
to
dad's a backus.
you got to provide these things, and the university does that. And remember, we're a land grant, a sea grant, and a space grant university. There aren't very many of those in the country, and UNH has that definition and has that designation.
Yeah.
And we have,
on this very thing, one of the things I really liked about the bill we passed to advance the Army project
Yes.
here was that the idea that we will help people with loan forgiveness from
Yes.
student
Yep,
debt
right.
if they come here, make a 5-year commitment to be
Right.
part of this effort.
Yeah.
Because one of the most distressing things about this legacy of the high tuition and the minuscule state support is our students are graduating with incredible levels of debt.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the major problems we have in the state and I guess in the country at large, but it's very acute in the state of New Hampshire
You
that
put
people
off
are coming
marrying,
out.
you put off buying a home.
You put off buying home, and it may direct your career choice to places that, as a society, we would hope people could make other choices.
Yeah, well,
I mean, how are you going to go out and become
example, not
a
in New
kindergarten
Hampshire.
teacher, you know? and
Right, sure.
You've got $50,000 or $60,000 in debt to get the qualification.
And New Hampshire wages are not on par with Connecticut, Massachusetts, and so that's another reason why folks have to leave the state to go make the money to pay back their loans.
Yeah, well, there is some truth to that. But remember this: the investment you make in education, although it's significant, it pays the best dividends of any investment you make. And you can look at extrapolations of college graduates and what they earn over a period of time versus non-college graduates, and the margin
Well, those
is
are overall
significant.
averages. I'm not sure
Well,
it works out for everybody that well.
Well, nothing
We have
works
an
out
int-
for
we-
everybody.
We have an interesting candidate running, one of the 9 running for the first CD, Declan McEachern, and he's pointing out that there's good wages to be made by people who choose certain professions,
Oh,
certain
sure.
trades that don't involve a college education. So
Wow.
I'm not necessarily, I mean, and I know you're
wow.
true, this is the overall truth, it's
Right.
always been true, but there are, I think, more nuances to it.
Well, there are always nuances that develop, and we need tradesmen today. But those tradesmen need education.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you want to be an electrician, you want
Well-
to be a bricklayer, you want to be a mechanic. In today's world, in today's world, you need education.
You need
training.
You need education.
And I think the
And to
vocational
be an
schools
effective
provide-
citizen, you need
Yes,
education.
sure.
Let's not forget that.
And that's why we passed civics.
Yeah.
You know, it's about time we got that done. I got that bill done
Yeah.
finally, and
And
so forth.
I couldn't agree more that we
So we
need
got-
more civics in the schools. I
Well,
think
we
our
need-
current situation is evidence of that. But, Bob, we've come to the end of the hour.
No.
Yeah, it's time to wrap up.
Well, I just wanted to thank Lou for being here with
Well,
us.
thank you, guys.
And I would just say that from my point of view, this session, we've had some outstanding results.
Yeah.
We had the right to work law strongly promoted by the
Yes,
governor
yes.
and the
Knocked
Republican
down.
leadership, failed.
Right.
The let's see, what was another one that was really important? We've already mentioned Medicaid expansion.
Yes.
That is certainly huge. The Marcy's Law thing. I can't remember a lobbying effort for something like
Right.
that in a long, long time. And that failed. It only got 51 votes in the House after all massive lobbying and unbelievable funding to push through this idea to put a victim's Bill of Rights into the state constitution, which has been going forward across
a
the country.
laudable ambition, but the bill wasn't the right bill.
And $1 million.
And the
was
other
spent.
one, of course, the big one was the voucher bill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or
Huge.
if you're pro for it, you call it the school choice bill, to actually divert public funds to private schools, including religious schools. And that on a very close vote, it passed the Senate,
Yes.
but the House, not with any Democratic support,
No.
but it did pass the Senate, but in the House with the, I think, 20 or 21 Republicans, we voted against that about 4 times, and it did not succeed despite that. These are significant results. I hope next time we have majorities on both sides,
well, that'd be nice.
and then we can not just stop bad
Right.
things, we can enact
Make better
good
things
things.
happen, right.
And we've got a lot of things.
Right.
So it's been really great to have you here again, Lou.
Thank you very
and I
much.
know you'll be
Great.
with us the week after next.
Yep, I'll be here.
And we'll have another edition where you'll be not the guest but the co-host again, and we will look forward to that.
Thank
And I just think it's been really great, and I wish you the best of.
Thank you.
This book is a success already. I don't think there's any doubt.
Well,
about
Thursday
it.
the
Okay.
31st, Manchester
Right.
City Library, 7 o'clock p.m.
Yeah, get
Be
your
there.
own signed autograph copy and greet Lou and thank him for being recognized by a very skilled writer. And I think anybody who gets this book will really enjoy reading it. And it won't take you. It's not War and Peace. You can
Right,
get
right.
through it. You can get through it in an
Right.
evening or two, and
You can.
and thoroughly enjoy it.
Thank you.
So thank you for coming down, and thank you folks for tuning in. And the show re-airs. If anybody wants to watch it that time, and we'll be back next week with another edition of the Progress Report. You can count on it. Enjoy this beautiful evening, folks.
See you next week.